Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. Today we are continuing with our Bible readings. I am again using the scriptures. I hope that you are reading along and following in your own Bible because I'm not a preacher, not an expert. I haven't even read through the whole thing first. So get your Bibles, get your coffee, and join us. Chapter 47. Then Joseph, went and spoke to Pharaoh and said, My father and my brothers, their flocks and their herds, and all that they possess, have come from the land of Canaan. And see, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to his brothers, What is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. And they said to Pharaoh, We have come to dwell in the land, because there is no pasture for your servants' flock, for the scarcity of food is severe in the land of Canaan. And now please let your servants sojourn in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Mitzrayim is before you. Settle your father and brothers in the best of the land. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know of capable men among them, make them chief herdsmen over my livestock. And Joseph brought in his father Jacob, and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, How old are you? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, The days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. Few and evil have been in the days of the years of my life, and they have not reached the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojournings. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and went out from before Pharaoh. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers, and gave them a possession in the land of Mitzrayim, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with bread for the mouth of the little ones. Now there was no bread in all the land, because the scarcity of food was very severe. And the land of Mitzrayim and all the land of Canaan became exhausted from the scarcity of food. And Joseph gathered up all the silver that was found in the land of Mitzrayim and in the land of Canaan for the grain which they bought. And Joseph brought the silver to Pharaoh's house. And when the silver was all spent in the land of Mitzrayim and in the land of Canaan, all the Mitzrites came to Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the silver is gone. And Joseph said, Give your livestock, and I give you bread for your livestock, if the silver is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for the horses and for the flocks they owned, and for the herds they owned, and for the donkeys. Thus he fed them with bread in exchange for all their livestock that year. And when that year had ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, We do not hide from my master that our silver is all spent, and my master has the livestock we owned. There has not been left any before my master but our bodies and our lands. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, for let us and our land be servants of Pharaoh. And give us seed, and let us live and not die, and let the land not lie waste. And Joseph bought the entire land of Mitzrayim for Pharaoh, because every man of the Mitzrites sold his field, because the scarcity of food was severe upon them. And the land came to be Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he moved them into the cities, from one end of the borders of Mitzrayim to the other end. Only the ground of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had from what Pharaoh gave them by law, and they ate that which Pharaoh gave them by law. Therefore they did not sell their ground. And Joseph said to the people, Look, I have bought you and your land today for Pharaoh. Look, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall be that in the harvest you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh, and 4/5 is your own, as seed for the field and for your food, for those of your households, and as food for your little ones. And they said, You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the eyes of my master, and we shall become Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it law over the land of Mitzrayim to this day, that Pharaoh should have 1/5, except for the ground of the priests only, which did not become Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Mitzrayim, in the land of Goshen, and they had possessions there, and were fruitful and increased exceedingly. And Joseph lived in the land of Mitzrayim 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. And the time for Israel to die drew near, and he called his sons Joseph and said to him, Now, if I have found favor in your eyes, please put your hand under my thigh and show loving commitment and truth to me. Please do not bury me in Mizraim, but I shall lie with my fathers, and you shall take me out of Mizraim and bury me in their burial place. And he said, I do as you have said. And he said, Swear to me. And he swore to him, and Israel bowed himself on the head of the bed. That was the end of chapter 47. So, the famine gets so bad that they have to sell everything. Everything. They can no longer buy the grain with silver. It's gone. So then they sell, their herd, their cattle, their sheep, goats, chickens, whatever. They sell that for food. I mean, it's not like they could afford to feed the animals anymore anyway. But now all they've got left is their land. And still no food. So they sell their land. It's bad to be in debt. It's bad to not have prepared enough to outlast that. Because you could lose everything. Because when you're starving, you'll do anything for food. Even sell yourself as a slave or a servant, or you sell your land and everything you have. You'll do anything for food when you're hungry enough. Don't be hungry enough. Chapter 48. And after these events it came to be that it was said to Joseph, See, your father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Jacob was told, See, your son Joseph is coming to you. And Israel strengthened himself and sat up in the bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me, and said to me, See, I am making you fruitful, and shall increase you and make of you an assembly of peoples, and give this land to your seed after you as an everlasting possession. And now your 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, were born to you in the land of Mizraim, before I came to you in Mizraim, are mine, as Reuben and Shimon, they are mine. Your offspring, whom you shall bring forth after them, are yours, and let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. And I, when I came from Padan, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was but a little distance to go to Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Israel saw Joseph's sons, and said, Who are these? And Joseph said to his father, They are my sons, who Elohim has given me in this place. And he said, Please bring them to me, and let me bless them. And the eyes of Israel were dim with age, and he was unable to see. And he drew them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I have not thought to see your face, but see, Elohim has also shown me your seed. So Joseph brought them from between his knees, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and he brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, consciously directing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, The Elohim before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, and Elohim who has fed me all my life long to this day, the messenger who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the youths, and let my name be called upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them increase to a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it was evil in his eyes, and he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from the head of Ephraim to the head of Manasseh. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But the father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also becomes a people, and he is also great. And yet his younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is to become the completeness of the nations. And he blessed them on that day, saying, in you Israel shall bless, saying, Elohim make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said to Joseph, see, I am dying, but Elohim shall be with you, and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And I have given to you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. So, Jacob is dying, and he blesses Joseph's sons, but he blesses the younger one more than the older one. We see this a lot, where the blessings that should go to the older one by tradition, by custom, are going to the younger one, Jacob included. But once again, the younger brother is the one with the real blessing, or the bigger blessing. I know, my son, I know. He also becomes a people. He becomes a people. And he is also great. And yet his younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is to become the completeness of the nations. The completeness of the nations. Chapter 49. And Jacob called his sons and said, gather together, so that I declare to you what is to befall you in the last days. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my power, and the beginning of my strength, and the excellency of exaltation in the excellency of power. Boiling like water, you do not excel, because you went up to your father's bed, and you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Simon and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council. Let my esteem not be united to their assembly. Because they killed a man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel. You, Yehudah, your brothers praise you. Your hand is on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children bow down before you. Yehudah is a lion's cub. From the prey you have gone up, my son. He bowed down and crouched like a lion. And like a lion, who does rouse him? The scepter shall not turn aside from Yehudah, nor an inscriber from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him is the obedience of peoples. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun dwells at the seashore. He is for a haven for ships, and his border is unto Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between two burdens. And he saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, and he inclined his shoulder to bear a burden, and became a subject to slave labor. Dan rightly rules his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backward. I have waited for your deliverance, O Yahweh. Gad, a raiding band, raids him, but he raids its heel. Bread from Asher is rich, and he gives delicacies of a sovereign. Naphtali is a deer let loose. He gives words of elegance. Joseph is an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. Its branches run over a wall. And the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the El of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the heavens from above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts of the womb and of the womb. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors up to the limit of the everlasting hills. They are on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who was separated from his brothers. Benjamin is a wolf that tears. In the morning he eats prey, and at night he divides the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke to them. And he blessed them. He blessed them each one according to his own blessing. And he commanded them, and he said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite as a possession for a burial site. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. The field purchased, and the cave which is in it, from the sons of Heth. And when Jacob ended commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed and breathed his last, and he was gathered to his people. So, it's a critique and blessing to all of his sons. Yeah, some of those not very nice. True, but not very nice. And Isaac dies, and he wants to be buried with his father, his grandfather, his wife, in the same place. So he gives his last instructions after his blessing, and he dies. Chapter 50. And Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants and the physicians to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were completed for him, for so are completed the days of embalming. And the Mitzrites wept for him 70 days. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, See, I am dying. Bury me in my burial site, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. And now please let me go up and bury my father and return. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Mitzrayim, and all the house of Joseph and his brothers and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond Yarden, and they lamented there with a great and very heavy lamentation. And he performed 7 days of mourning for his father. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning for the Mitzrites. That is why its name was called Abel Mitzrayim, which is beyond the Yarden. And his sons did to him as he had commanded them. For his sons brought him to the land of Canaan, and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite, as property for a burial site. And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Mitzrayim, he and his brothers and all who went up with him to bury his father. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, What if Joseph hates us and pays us back all the evil which we did to him? And they sent word to Joseph, saying, Before your father died, he commanded, saying, This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the Elohim of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers also wept and fell down before his face, and they said, See, we are your servants. And Joseph said to them, Do not fear, for I am in the place of Elohim. And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is to this day, to keep a great many people alive. And now do not fear, I provided for you and your little ones. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And Joseph dwelt in Mitzrayim, he and his father's household. And Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. The children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knees. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And Joseph made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here. And Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Mitzrayim. So, once Jacob dies, has him embalmed, which apparently takes 40 days back then. And they took Jacob to the burial place of his father and his wife, and just as they promised him. And everybody went, except the little ones and the herds, And even the elders of Egypt went. So it was a lot of people that went to go bury him in the land of Canaan. And, his brothers are worried, well, now that Dad's dead, is he going to, get even with us for selling him off in the first place when he was young? And he's like, no, yeah, you intended evil. You deserve something, but God used it to do good, to do a lot of great things, so we're good. And then it skips to Joseph's death. Like, we've been with him, all these little details for so long. Now it's just, and he was 110 years old and he died. But before he died, he made the children of Israel swear that whenever they are returned to the land of Canaan, to take his bones and bury him up there, which we will see shortly. But that is the end of the reading for today, and that is the end of Genesis. We have finally finished the first book. But Genesis is a long one. That's 50 chapters. They are not all as long. The first several are, though. Some are even longer, actually. But we're done with Genesis. Woohoo! Let's celebrate. Thanks for coming along with me today. I hope you join us again next week. I hope you're reading along with your own Bible. And may the Father bless you. Shalom.